all for the technical talk on making of durable and sustainable concrete organized by the Faculty of Civil Engineering, SRM Ollime Engineering College. In association with Industry Institute Partnership Cell and Institute of Technical Education, both students and faculty chapter, as well as Institution of Engineers, student and faculty chapter. Then I would like to begin the session of expression my respect to our honorable chief guest, Dr. J.D. Bapat sir, for accepting our humble request. Welcome, sir. And esteemed principal, respected vice principal, and beloved head of the department, Dr. D. Elango sir, of our faculty member, students, our respected external participants from various sectors of civil engineering industry, I welcome you all. And now I request Ms. Tarni ma'am to introduce the chief guest.
Thank you, sir. With great sense of honor, I take up this opportunity to introduce our chief guest, Dr. J.D. Bapat, sir, who has given an enormous contribution for the last 4 decades in teaching, research, and professional services. Dr. J.D. Bapat has completed his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree from IIT Delhi. He is currently working as advisor and development professional in the field of construction and is also a TUV certified CDM expert in cement sector. Sir also holds the highest grade at Institution of Engineers India as FIE. Earlier, Sir has worked as faculty, director and principal at engineering colleges affiliated to the University of Pune. He has also worked at senior positions in Vanchal Nagar Industry Limited and National Council for Cement and Building Materials, New Delhi. He's also been a technical consultant to leading companies in areas of research, new products development, and techno marketing. Till date, Sir has been organizing technical courses for professionals working in cement, concrete, and construction industries in India as well as in abroad. Dr. J.D. Bapat is a reviewer for many international journals and also holds membership in many professional organizations. Sir has also published a book on mineral admixtures in cement and concrete at USA. His biography has been included in Who's Who in the World, Who's Who in Asia, and Who's Who in Science and Engineering. He's also been distinguished among top 100 engineers of 2012 and also as the International Engineer of the Year 2012 by the International Biographical Centre at Cambridge, England. Sir, we are indeed truly honored to have you amongst us as a speaker of the session, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Sir, I now request Dr. J.D. Bapat, sir, to take over the session.
Thank you, Tarini. So, good evening to all the faculty members and the students and also the people from industry who have joined for this webinar today. As you can see, the topic of today's webinar is making of durable and sustainable concrete. You can see my website ID over there. So if you have any queries later, you can always get in touch with me later on. Right? Now, before I start making my presentation, I would like to acknowledge that the sincere thanks to the publisher of my book, Mineral Admixtures in Cement and Concrete, CRC Place Taylor and Francis Group, USA. Because many things in this presentation I have taken from my own book. What is the meaning of sustainability with regard to cement and concrete? It is conservation of materials and energy and minimization of emission of greenhouse gases and pollutants in all stages. What are the stages? Starting from quarrying of raw materials for cement manufacture, aggregate and transportation, materials handling, unit operations of size reduction, batching, blending, pyroprocessing, packaging and distribution at the cement plant till it reaches the user side. Then placing of concrete and minimization of wastages at all levels in the construction site are the key to ensure the sustainability. Now we are moving on to the next slide. Durability. Karini, there are some people waiting in the lobby. I am getting a message.
Sir, I'm admitting them, sir.
Some people
sir,
are waiting. Yeah.
I'm admitting them,
Yeah.
sir.
You will admit them. Yeah. Durability is synonymous with the application of mineral admixtures in cement and concrete. Now, what are the mineral admixtures which are approved by IS 456-2000? So these are the 5 admixtures which I have given in my slide. They are approved by IS 456, namely pulverized fuel ash, PFA, that is blast furnace slag, BFS, silica fume, SF, rice husk ash, RHA, and metakaolin. Now, what happens when you use mineral admixtures in cement? So actually sustainability starts from there. You save energy, we save energy. So there is a table given in this slide on the top, which gives you an idea as to what is the level of energy saving when you add fly ash or slag to cement. Now when you add fly ash to cement, you manufacture Portland Pozzolana cement, PPC. When you add slag, you manufacture Portland slag cement. So you can see there, for example, if you are to manufacture Portland cement, then you are consuming, let us say, 100 units of thermal energy and 100 units of electrical energy. Now, when you make PPC by adding 15% of fly ash, then straight away the thermal energy is coming down to 84. Electric energy is reduced to 89. When you go to PSC, that is Portland slag cement, then the thermal energy is coming almost to half. And electric energy is again almost reduced by 25%. So there is a huge saving of thermal as well as electrical energy when you manufacture Portland Pozzolana and Portland slag cement. Ideal energy consumption for a new large capacity plant is given over there. Okay, 680 to 720 kilocalories per kg, and electrical energy is 72 to 74 kilowatt hours per ton. Cement industry contributes 5% of the total anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions globally. Anthropogenic means the carbon dioxide which is generated by human consumption. That is anthropogenic. Now, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, that is WBCSD. WBCSD envisages reduction in CO2 emission by a factor of 2 by 2050 from its 1990 levels. It's a very ambitious goal. Now it will require technological shift in the areas of concrete raw materials, mixed design, new building techniques, and using less materials to obtain desired structural properties. Let us go ahead. Now, how do you define durability in structures? It is the ability of the structures. It is the ability of the structures to resist weathering action, chemical attack, and abrasion, maintaining the minimum strength and other desired engineering properties. Designing for strength and durability is synonymous to designing for sustainability. National standards are mostly prescriptive in nature. They define exposure conditions. Excuse me. Design procedure, building materials and their applications, not assuring minimum service life of structure. This is actually the fallacy of the national standard, because they don't assure you what is the minimum service life which will be assured if you follow the standards. Durability depends on the environment and the quality of concrete. These are the two major factors. Now, how do we design for durability? Identification of the exposure conditions. First of all, you have to do that as per the standards. The first step to design for durability. The next step is proper design procedure and materials choice, including concrete suitable for exposure conditions. Exposure conditions are defined in the standard, so you have to refer to the standard. There are two approaches. One is prescriptive and another is performance based. Actually, performance based approach is not followed by anybody because there are no standards available for performance based design, or they are only partially available, I will say. Prescriptive standards are available widely all over the world, so most of the people follow prescriptive standard. The common factors are in both the approaches are acceptance of permeability as a criterion for durability, quality of construction work, and continuous maintenance of structures during the use. These are the three criteria accepted by both the approaches: permeability, quality of construction work, and the continuous maintenance of structures during the use. There are two major faults in concrete construction that can lead to loss of durability. What are those factors? They are inadequate cover to reinforcement, inadequate compaction of cover concrete. These are the major factors. Quality control norms for construction materials are well established, but for construction processes are practically non-existent. This is a vacuum. So you people can do work in this area. You can develop standards for construction process. There are no standards available on that right now. Mineral admixtures impart durability and strength to concrete. I have already shown you the 5 admixtures which are approved by IS 456. Now I am coming to ASTM classification of fly ash. Why I am referring to ASTM and IS both? Because many parts in the world they refer to ASTM standard, number one. Number two, ASTM standards are more comprehensive. So it is always better for you as civil engineers to know both ASTM standard as well as the IS standard. Now ASTM C618 and IS 3812, they classify Portland fly ash, that is this pulverized fly ash as, or fly ash FA, as follows. And one is class F, is obtained by burning anthracite coal, or it is known as grade 1 in IS 3812. Then class C of ISTM, obtained by burning lignite coal, or grade 2 in IS 3812. So you can see there is a relationship between the two standards. Former is pozzolanic, that is grade 1 or class F is pozzolanic, whereas later is both pozzolanic as well as cementitious. Later on we will see what is the difference between pozzolanic and cementitious. It is also seen that grinding or size reduction operation improves the pozzolanic activity of pulverized fuel ash, PFA, when carried out in controlled manner. Is very important word, controlled manner. Now I am coming to slag. We have seen fly ash. Now I am coming to slag. Now slag grades as per ASTM and the Indian standard. ASTM C98909 specifies 3 grades of GGBS by activity index. GGBS is ground granulated blast furnace slag, that is GGBS. By activity index, the grades are, I am talking about ASTM, the grades are 80, 100 and 120. Again, when you come to IS, this is a very recent standard. Earlier it was not there. IS 16714 specifies minimum activity index of 75 and minimum glass content of 85%. So you can see the difference. In ASTM standard, glass content is not specified, but activity indexes are specified as 80, 100 and 120. Whereas as per Indian standard, that 75 is actually activity index in ASTM. So there is some similarity between ASTM and IS standard over here. Now activity, how do we define activity index? It is the average 28-day compressive strength of 50% slag plus 50% cement cubes, which we call as SP. divided by the average compressive strength of reference cement cubes, that is Portland cement cubes, which you call as P, and multiply by 100. So the formula is slag activity index is equal to SPE upon P into 100. You get activity index. Now, which is the best? As per ASTM, grade 120 represents the highest strength. Now, what is the conceptual meaning of this 120? I will just tell you. For example, if you remove 1 kg of cement from your concrete mix design and you are using grade 120 of slag, then you will have to replace it with only 800 grams or 0.8 kg of GGBS. That means replacement level will be less. Okay, so this is what it means. So as you improve the grade, you will always see that the amount of material required is less. You are conserving material by using higher grades. Now, how do we analyze the concrete strength? This is shown in this slide. Compressive strength of concrete containing mineral admixtures, F admixture, is represented by combination of 3 distinct additive factors. What are the factors? There is a small equation given over there. F admixture is equal to F dilution plus F physical plus F chemical. Now, what is F dilution? It is reduced strength proportional to the amount of cement removed from the mixture without considering the physical and chemical effect of mineral admixture. What does it mean? It means that supposing you only remove the cement from your mixture, then there will be some strength reduction. So that is your F dilution. Okay, without considering the other 2 factors, that is namely F physical and F chemical. Now, what does this F physical and F chemical do? Let us see that. F physical is the increase in strength due to physical effect. Or heterogeneous nucleation due to mineral admixture. That is F physical. And chemical effect is the real effect, that is increase in strength related to pozzolanic reaction. So from this equation you can see that F dilution has a negative sign, whereas F physical and F chemical have positive signs. Now when the summation of these 3 becomes positive, you will find that the strength of concrete using admixture will be higher than the strength of concrete using Portland cement. It's a very simple formula for all of you. Now this is how cement looks under scanning electron microscope. These are the irregular shaped particles. And this is how the fly ash looks. You see that the particles are spherical shape. Now what happens when you have spherical shaped particles? See, in mechanical engineering there is one concept which is known as the ball bearing. Now what does ball bearing do in the machines? Ball bearings are actually reducing the friction in the machines. The same effect you will see here when you add fly ash in concrete. The fly ash addition will reduce friction between the aggregate particles and the cement particles. What is the impact of reducing friction? There are 2 impacts. If you keep your water to cement ratio constant, then your workability will increase by addition of fly ash. If you want to keep the workability constant, then you can reduce the water to cement ratio. So both the effects are beneficial for the concrete. So you have to decide what exactly you want, and accordingly you have to design your concrete mix. Now let us see the size effect of fly ash. Now particle size of raw fly ash ranges mostly from 1 to 100 microns. So let us see how it affects the strength of the concrete. Now under 10 micron, it will contribute to early strength, that is 7-day and 28-day strength of concrete. Between 10 to 45 micron, they will react slowly and contribute towards late strength, that is up to 1 year of concrete. And above 45 micron, you will find it is considered as inert and largely act as fine sand or filler. So different sizes will have different contribution toward the concrete strength. Now the typical nature of fly ash addition in concrete is the strength increases continuously over a long time period. You can see in this graph. It's an indicative graph actually. So when you as the time passes, you can see there that the strength will keep on increasing, and at particular point there in the graph you can see it overcomes the strength of the control concrete made from Portland cement. The same is the case with blast furnace slag, but blast furnace slag strength is very much proportional to the glass content. So I have already told you, I have shown you in our standard we not only specify the quality index, but we also specify the glass content, because glass content has got a relationship with the strength of concrete. So it is very important. That is the reason why Indian standard also specifies both quality and quality grade as well as the glass content. You can see in this plot, as the glass content increases, the compressive strength of concrete increases. Now we are coming to a next concept, that is intermediate transition zone. I have shown you in this slide there are two scanning electron ACM slides over there. And what is the meaning of intermediate transition zone? It is a transition zone between the aggregate and the bulk of cement paste. So at the bottom you can see that is the aggregate, and then you can also see the transition zone, bulk of cement paste and the aggregate. Now you can see there that when I add 10% silica fume in concrete, the thickness of transition zone will decrease. What is the impact of this? The impact of this is that there is going to be increase in the strength of concrete, because as the thickness of ITZ decreases, the strength of concrete will increase. All structural engineers will appreciate this fact. This photograph has been taken on a cube, actual cube. Then another effect of adding the admixture. Now what I showed you in the earlier slide for silica fume is also applicable to fly ash and GGBS. Is only an example of silica fume. Now when you add fly ash, GGBS or silica fume, you produce additional calcium silicate hydrate. At the top I have written over there. Now what is the meaning of this? The calcium silicate hydrate is the strength giving compound in concrete. The more CSH you have in your concrete, higher will be the strength of your concrete. Now you can see in the plot, you can see in this computer generated plots, these are computer generated plots, that the CSH which is generated, you can see on the right hand side. The CSH generated with the hydration of admixtures is actually blocking the pores. It is blocking the connecting lines between different pores. You can see there. And what is the impact of this? Because the pore solution is not getting transferred from one pore to another. So it's a very beneficial effect of this CSH. So unlike the CSH which is produced by the hydration of cement, which is actually depositing on cement particle, the CSH which is produced after the hydration of fly ash, GGBS or silica fume is away from the cement particle, and actually it goes to block the interconnection between the pores in the concrete. Very beneficial effect. It reduces the porosity of concrete actually. Another effect of adding admixtures is, you can see that this is very beneficial for the mass concreting. You can see in the plot that the temperature rise is drastically reduced when I add 50% slag in my concrete. You can see over there that the temperature has come, the peak temperature has come down from 50 degrees centigrade to just around 30 degrees centigrade. So there is a huge reduction in the temperature of concrete, which is very beneficial for mass concreting. Like for example, you do a lot of mass concreting in dams. So there the temperature is very important. Now, this slide is about curing. Very important thing for concrete. Now, curing is a process to prevent loss of moisture from concrete while maintaining satisfactory temperature regime. So curing is there to maintain the moisture and the temperature. Remember this. Early and long-term curing is beneficial for development of concrete properties. Moisture loss prevention is important when your water to cement ratio is low, that is below 0.4. When cement has a high rate of strength development, and when concrete contains mineral admixtures. In all these three cases, curing is very, very important. Cannot be ignored. Adequate and continuous supply of water is necessary for long-term strength development and improved durability performance of concrete with mineral admixtures. Now here I would like to tell you one more thing, that there are some manufacturers of polymers especially. They tell that if you add this particular chemical in your concrete, curing is not required. I actually conducted experiments on this particular area and I found that they are false claims. So far, curing has not been replaced by any other thing. If you want to do less curing, or if you want to avoid curing, the only one way is that you apply curing compound on the surface of concrete. You can apply curing compound on the surface of concrete. That will not require curing. But these are the only two methods of curing. Either you use water for curing or you apply curing compound. I do not see any other feasible third method of avoiding curing. Now I am coming to a subject of the concrete deterioration. What are the various ways in which concrete gets deteriorated? The first is carbonation, which is very common in almost all the concretes. Now carbonation increases with, actually carbonation occurs with carbon dioxide, which is always available in our atmosphere. It increases with carbon dioxide concentration in surrounding. The relative humidity RH of 50 to 80% is optimum for the propagation of carbonation. IS 516 part 5 section 3, this is very recent Indian standard. Now for your information, I will tell you that if you go to Indian Standard website, that is Bureau of Indian Standard, BIS website, that website allows you to download any standard free of cost. Please note this is very important. So you can download any latest version of any Indian standard from the website of Bureau of Indian Standard. You have to only register over there and you can download PDF file on the particular standard. Okay, so this IS 516 part 5 section 3 is a recent addition in the standard. It gives you the test method to evaluate the carbonation penetration depth in concrete. Now Jan Bijan is a scientist actually, and some of his colleagues, they carried out some experimentation. What they found, large scale study on durability of structures built along with the Dutch coast. This was done in Netherlands with BFA, that is blast furnace slag concrete. Structures included sluices, piers and quays ranging in age from 3 to 63 years. In 48 out of 51 structures, the carbonation depth was less than 5 years. So people always say that if you use GTBS or blast furnace slag in your cement, the carbonation will be more. So this particular finding of Dr. Jan Bijan actually has proved that no such thing happens in actual case. Then early and longer curing gives better carbonation resistance. Please remember this, especially in concrete with mineral admixtures. Now this is how the carbonation testing is done. Now you can see over there, it is the phenolphthalein indicator which is used for finding out the depth of carbonation in concrete. It is a specimen, concrete specimen. Now wherever the indicator gets discolorated or discolored. And the carbonation has penetrated. You can see that depth of the carbonation can be easily detected by discoloration of the indicator. It is the indirect measure. I have given out that the pink indicator shows where the pH drops below 9, that is acidic pH, by decolorization. Next slide. Larger quantities of fly ash, that is more than 25%, delay setting and early strength, but can be tackled very effectively by the super plasticizer which are nowadays available in the market. Wherever possible, specifying 56 days strength instead of 28 days strength can result in better optimization of mixture. That means you can optimize the quantity of fly ash which will replace cement by if the structural engineer at the site allows you to use 56 days strength instead of 28 days strength. For reactive aggregates, better to perform standard expansion test to determine the limit of effect. What is the meaning of reactive aggregates? Now, in some parts of the country, the aggregates are reactive. That means they give rise to alkali aggregate reaction, or sometimes people call it as alkali silica reaction, ASR. Now, when you have reactive aggregates, it is always better to perform the standard expansion test to determine the limit of fly ash addition there. Actually, fly ash reduces the alkali silica reaction incidence. To control ASR, better to keep the alkali content of fly ash below 1.5% Na2O equivalent. So this is the normal way of expressing alkali content in cement as well as the admixture. You always express in terms of Na2O equivalent as per IS 3812. So it should always be less than 1.5%. Now this is the plot. This is the graph which I have shown you. I am showing you. That is testing of aggregate cemented admixture for alkali silica reaction. So on the y-axis you can see the percentage expansion after 14 days. This is performed according to ASTM C1567. That is rapid alkali silica reaction test. That is there in ASTM. Okay, so you can see there in the control concrete, the expansion is actually crossing the limit of 0.1, which is fixed by the ASTM C1567. This ASTM C1567 is also called as accelerated mortar bar test, AMBT. And you can see over there that fly ash, slag and silica fume, they reduce the expansion after 14 days. You can see in all cases of fly ash addition from 20 to 55%, the reduction is, the expansion is much less. In case of slag also above 50%, it is satisfying the requirement of ASTM. Silica fume also above 10% is satisfying the requirement of ASTM. Right? We'll go to next slide. Now for chloride resistance. Now why chloride resistance? Because chloride causes corrosion. Corrosion of what? Corrosion of reinforcement in concrete. Now chloride is a very harmful chemical. Now, and then we have to take care of the chloride resistance of concrete in every structure, every concrete structure, especially underground structures or the structures which are built along the marine coast or in the marine atmosphere, I will say. Now, perform RCPT as per ASTM C1202. So I indicated two things over there. One is RCPT. What is the meaning of RCPT? It is rapid chloride penetration test. To be very correct, it is rapid chloride ion penetration test, RCPT, as per ASTM 1202 to find fly ash content for RCPT value. Now what is the RCPT value? Acceptable RCPT value for good chloride resistance is 1500 to 2000 coulombs. And then, as I have already told you earlier, that 56 days strength is always desirable, provided your structural engineer permits you. Perform the test as per ASTM C1012 to find optimum fly ash for sulfate resistance. So chloride resistance we have seen, now sulfate resistance. This is again very important for marine structures, both chloride as well as sulfate. Only disadvantage with this ASTM C1012 is that the test takes a long time. It takes up to 1 year. So you have to perform it little early when you are going for the marine structures. So this is the plot which shows the rapid chloride permeability test RCPT results. I have shown you an example over there. The example is if 0.003 ampere current is passed through the concrete for a duration of test, that is 360 minutes, that is standard duration of the test, 360 minutes. Then the total charge passed would be 65 coulombs. So what you have to do, how you calculate these 65 coulombs? You multiply 0.003 by 360 into 60, because you have to convert everything in seconds. So you will get the figure of 65 coulombs over there. So if you have 65 coulombs RCPT value, then you can say that your concrete has got very good chloride resistance, a very good corrosion resistance. Now this is the slide on sulfate resistance. The expansion of cement mortar blended with fly ash exposed to sodium sulfate. Sodium sulfate is very frequently found in seawater environment as per ASTM C1012. 180-day expansion limit as fixed by the C1012 is 0.1% for the moderate and 0.05% for the severe sulfate environment. You have to go back and then study all these standards, then you will understand what I am saying properly. Now coming to our Indian standard, IS 456-2000 is normally followed in the structures in our country. They are also specified in the tenders. IS 456 on durability, what does it say? Permeability is identified as the single most important parameter affecting durability. It stresses on the quality of constituents, binder content, that is binder is cement as well as the admixture. Water to cement ratio, workmanship, namely compaction, curing, cover to the embedded steel. To this, I will also add the curing in workmanship. Total water soluble sulfate is restricted to 4% of cement as per IS 456. The Portland slag cement as per IS 455 with slag greater than 50% is recommended for the combined sulfate and chloride attack. This is very important because in sea water or also in marine environment you will find also in the soils, marine soils, both sulfate as well as chloride is available. So the IS 456 recommends the use of Portland slag cement with more than 50% GTBS or slag. Total acid soluble chloride restricted to 0.4 for steam cured and pre-stressed concrete and 0.6 kg per meter cube of reinforced concrete. Total alkali content is restricted to 0.6 in Portland cement. These are all the things which are specified in IS 456. Now let us see some examples of durable and sustainable concrete. One typical example I want to mention over here is carbon cure technology, that is recycling of carbon dioxide in the fresh concrete. Do I have some time, organizers? I think I have some time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I continue for another 10 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are discussing about the carbon cure technology. So World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD, recommends the reduction of this emission, that is carbon dioxide emission, by 50%. We have already seen this by 50% by 2050 from their 1990. It is a typo error. It is 1990 level, not 1995 level. The greatest proportion of projected carbon reduction, that is 56% as per WBCSD, is expected from the implementation of carbon capture and sequestration, that is CCS technologies. But actually, unfortunately, these technologies have not yet been fully developed and commercialized. So experience showed over a period of time, okay, when WBCSD gave the recommendation, it was in 1995. Now we are in 2020. So the experience showed the CCS is no longer the most promising technology. So carbon cure has come up with a better technology, a new technology. Which they manufacture a technology that introduces recycled carbon dioxide coming from chimney or from atmosphere, from wherever you get it, into fresh concrete without compromising the performance of concrete. I have given a small reaction over there. You can see that. See, actually, calcium hydroxide is available in your hydrated concrete. When you add carbon dioxide to that, you get calcium carbonate and water. So it is a very calculated quantity of carbon dioxide which is added, which takes into account the calcium carbonate generated and also water generated. At the same time, it also takes into account the alkalinity of the concrete, because if you reduce the alkalinity, then there will be a problem of corrosion. So the carbon cure technology, it takes into account by doing some calculations all these factors, and this calcium carbonate gets embedded in the concrete. So while eliminating carbon dioxide, it makes the concrete stronger. This is first example. Second example is high volume fly ash cement. Okay, and then we'll go to third straight away because there is less time available. So let us see. Now let us see this, because there is some R&D scope, because I think your faculty will be interested in R&D. I will just tell you in very short. This high volume fly ash cement was developed by Electric Power Research Institute (EPRI) USA in partnership with Canada Center for Mineral and Energy Technology (CANMET). They developed an optimal procedure for intergrinding clinker. The clinker is actually raw cement in the cement factory, and fly ash to produce acceptable cements containing high volume of ASTM class F. We have already seen that fly ash more than 50%. Blended cements comprised of approximately 55% fly ash interground with 45% ASTM type 1 cement clinker with small amounts of gypsum and a dry superplasticizer. For similar slump, the results are like this. For similar slump and air content, use of HVFA, that is high volume fly ash cement in concrete, increases the dosage of superplasticizer and air retaining admixture, delayed both initial setting time, IST, and final setting time, FST, and significantly increased the temperature rise, decreased the temperature rise to 20%, 20 degrees centigrade and lesser of the concrete. This is very significant. The last line is very significant, that you have reduced the temperature rise in concrete by more than 20 degrees centigrade. Compressive strength of high volume fly ash cement concrete was lower at 1 day, but kept on increasing beyond 28 days, and at 91 days it was 6% higher than the control concrete made from Portland cement. Rapid chloride ion penetration test RCPT value at 91 days as per the ASTM C1012 gave the value of 620 as against 3940 for Portland cement concrete. So you can see the difference between RCPT values. Now, what is the R&D scope in this? Maybe important for people who are doing R&D in concrete. Bureau of Indian Standard (BIS) recently published a standard for composite cement, that is IS 16415/2015, very recent standard, which allows 50 to 35% of fly ash and 20 to 50% of granulated blast furnace slag addition to Portland cement of minimum 35% by mass. So that means, thus the standard allows addition of mineral admixtures, namely fly ash plus granulated slag together up to 65%. We are already allowed in Indian standard. That underlies a need to conduct laboratory and plant scale experiments which you can do on HVFA cement in India. So there is a small difference. That means instead of combining fly ash and granulated slag, you add only 65% or 55% fly ash. If the development is successful, Indian standard can be suitably modified to accommodate the change. So whatever people did in Canada can also be done in India by conducting the laboratory and the large scale trials and you can develop a new cement, and also it can be added in the Indian standard later. So this is the R&D scope. So I'm moving on to next thing very quickly. This is also high volume fly ash concrete. So I'm just going ahead. So recycling of lagoon ash. Right? See, recycling of lagoon ash is very, very important because there is very large quantity of lagoon ash available in our country. Millions of tons, I will say. As a general practice in Indian thermal power plants, fly ash and bottom ash coming from boiler are mixed with water and transported to ash ponds. That ash is called as lagoon ash or pond ash. It is non-standard ash and cannot be added to cement or concrete. It is not allowed. In 2019-20, very recently, 95.1 million tons of ash was dumped in lagoons. You can imagine. Lagoons create huge land, water, and air pollution. So if you want to make sustainable concrete, you have to use this lagoon ash. Okay. Any effort towards large-scale utilization of this ash will go a long way in sustainable development of thermal power generation as well as the construction industry. The effective way is to utilize pond ash, is to add it in the concrete in high volumes, that is more than 50%, as a partial replacement of Portland cement. Dry lean concrete, that is DLC, is one of the effective ways to use lagoon ash in large quantities. DLC is a base course below pavement quality concrete in concrete roads. Some of you may be knowing this. Now, I am quoting a research which I have myself done. In 2006, myself and some of my colleagues, we conducted successful laboratory trials on high volume lagoon ash DLC. I have given the reference over there for those who want to refer this paper. It has been published in American Society of Civil Engineers Journal. There is materials, the name of the journal is Journal of ASCE Journal of Materials in Civil Engineering. It was published in 2006. So you can refer to this paper. The DLC was prepared according to the specification given by the Ministry of Roads and Highways, MORTH, and Indian Road Congress, IRC. DLC prepared with 55% replacement of cement with lagoon ash satisfied the provisions of IRC, MORTH, IRC. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Government of India has undertaken a construction of national highways on a large, massive scale. All of us know this. Portland cement concrete is extensively used for the construction work. Assuming lagoon ash based DLC is used as a base course of all these concrete roads, I assume the thickness of 150 mm thick. In the construction of these highways, the quantity of lagoon ash used will be about 300. I calculated it actually. Is about 319 tons per kilometer of a 4-lane road constructed with 55% cement replaced by lagoon ash. It's a very huge saving and utilization of lagoon ash here. So we are coming to the end of this presentation. I have given the details of contacting me. You can see there is a website, there is an email ID also. You can also communicate with me on email. You can also join me on LinkedIn. My handle is Dr. JD Bapat. You can join me on Facebook, that is Jayanth D. Bapat. And then there are 2 Twitter accounts. One is SemCritCon, another is Dr. JD Bapat. So I will request all the participants to come out with the questions. I'll leave it open for questions. Tarini.
Yes, sir.
So I encourage the students and the faculty and also all the other people who have joined today's presentation to ask as many questions as possible.
Participants, you can interact with the speaker. If you have any doubts or any clarifications in regards to the durability and sustainability of concrete from the topics discussed as well as from like outside the topics which is discussed.
Please put on your mic when you ask questions. Please put on your mic and ask the question. Or if you have a problem, then you can put it on chat box. Madam Tarini will read it out.
Yes, sir. There's a question in the chat box, sir. I'll read it out for you, sir. It's from Mr. Satyanathan Sharma, sir. Can we use admixtures in construction where we didn't use cement?
When we didn't use cement?
Yes, sir. In the absence of cement, if there is any other replacement of cement, can an admixture come in line with that?
Till this date, there is no substitute for cement. You can only partially replace cement with admixture.
Yes.
There is no substitute for cement. Yes.
Participants, are there any other questions?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, this is Sugandhan. Sir, I have
Yes.
one doubt, sir. Sir, for
Yeah,
long-term
please.
durability analysis, sir. So, which is the main supplementary cementitious material for replacing of OPC in concrete fly ash or with the silica fume, sir?
Silica fume, see, silica fume is the imported material so far as India is concerned. Then the another difference between silica fume and fly ash as well as GGBS is silica fume is added to concrete as an additional material. It does not replace cement. Please note this. Silica fume does not replace cement. It is only additive material and it is the important material. So when you use silica fume in concrete, you are actually increasing the cost of your concrete. So if you want to have a long-term durability, I will recommend the admissions which are given approved by IS 456, except silica fume. That is fly ash, GGBS, rice cast ash, and metakaolin.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sugandhan. Sir, the previous question regarding the usage of admixtures when we don't have cement, it has been actually adjoined by another question, sir. If I'm using lime instead of cement, can admixtures be used instead?
See, it is a very important question for all civil engineers to understand. You will see that all our ancient structures,
Yes, sir.
even the structures which our grandfathers made 100 years back, they were all made from lime sand mixtures. There was no cement available in so much of quantity. And many of the structures are still standing. So technically, I cannot say that lime sand cannot be used. It can be used definitely. If it was used 100 years back, it can be used today also. The problem here is that if you want to reduce the factor of safety in your structures, then you have to use only cement component. You cannot use the lime sand, because if you see the thickness of the walls in our old structures, you will find that the thickness of wall was as high as 5 feet or 6 feet sometimes. Whereas today you have very thin walls of 9 inches or 10 inches. Okay, so if you want to have a thin walls and the thin slender cylinders, then you have to use the concrete made from cement. So have I given given the answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So technically it is feasible. Technically it is feasible.
Participants, are there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I'm Kavin. I have a doubt regarding self-compacting concrete. In self-compacting concrete, the proportioning of admixtures, it may be of any admixture, but as in a water-reducing admixture, as well as addition of powdery materials. Entire mixing of an SEC itself is complicated. More research needs to be done in site before concreting. So how to do it in an efficient manner, how to proportion it? Any guidance regarding it would be helpful, sir.
Yeah. See, there is a site which gives you there is a website which gives you complete guidance on the mixing, the design, mixing and manufacture of self-compacting concrete. And people are making it very successfully in our country. So at this moment, I will not. I don't remember the ID of the particular website, but I have myself referred it many times. So you go to that website, it gives you very in detail. There is a standard also. There is the international standard on manufacturing self-compacting concrete (SCC). So there is no problem at all in making SCC. You have to study a bit. And the mix design, manufacturing, and the application of SCC is different from the conventional concrete. That also is to be remembered.
Also, sir,
And
another
at times
follow-up
it may be
question
costly also.
regarding
At
it.
times it may be costly also. Not always, but at times it may be.
Sir, one more follow-up question regarding self-compacting concrete. Let us say that the product brochure of the SCC admixture says 7 ml needs to be added for 1 kg of cement or so. So if we do the same for the weight by volume of the cement, we often don't tend to find the exact output of it. So what is the meager variation we need to start, as in from the point variation from the start to end, sir, as in 5% or even as in 5 ml or 10 ml, or how much variation should we give, sir?
Let me understand your question. You want to ask, you are asking that how to determine the quantity of chemical admixture, right?
Yes, sir. Even though it is said in the product brochure, it doesn't give the exact output. So how are we going to decide it exactly?
Okay. Now, if you refer the standards, you will find there is a test which is given as Marsh cone test. So you have to carry out the Marsh cone test to determine whether your chemical admixture is matching with the quality of your cement. Please note that all the chemical admixtures do not match with all the cements. So if one particular chemical admixture is working well in one particular site, that does not really mean that it will work the same way in your site. So at your site laboratory, you must conduct the Marsh cone test to find out whether your chemical admixture is really matching the quality of your cement. Now, with regard to the self-compacting concrete, there are some 3 or 4 more tests which are required to be performed other than the Marsh cone test. Right? So, if you are in the business of SCC, then you have to do all those tests. They are given in the standard. Because SCC is a free-flowing concrete with infinite, mathematically infinite slump. Okay. So, there are some special trials you have to take in the laboratory when you say SCC. But for normal concrete, to find out the compatibility, that is the word, compatibility of your chemical admixture with your cement, you have to carry out the Marsh cone test. And the way in which it is to be carried out is already given in Indian standard, also in the Have I given the answer to your question, gentlemen?
Kavin?
Yes, sir, you have, sir. Thank you,
Following,
sir.
absolutely. That you like. Till you are satisfied.
There's another follow-up question in the chat box, sir, regarding the usage of cement. It says that about 1/3 of the pollutants are coming from the cement production. Already we are running out of river sand and we've reached M sand. What is going to be the role of cement as an eco-friendly construction material? Also, concrete production contributes around. Yes, sir?
What is the role of?
No, so the role of cement as a eco-friendly construction material. Yes, so what is going to be the role of cement as an eco-friendly construction material? Because obviously it is giving out larger pollutants out in the environment. So, where do we exactly find the replacement of cement? When will that be arrived at?
Either you or mine, I'm not quite sure about this. See, yes. Is contributed by cement industry. You are in the atmosphere. To give you an idea, every 1 ton of cement produced,
yes, sir,
is giving away 0.7 tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's a very huge quantity. Now the only way of reducing this CO2 is using less and less. Use as much as possible, as much less cement as possible. Replace cement with admixtures. That is the only way at the moment.
Okay, sir, and there's one more question from Mr. Moganraj, sir. How can we maintain the quality of fly ash and its homogeneity when used in cement manufacturing?
Okay. Now, cement manufacturers, those who use fly ash for manufacturing Portland Pozzolana cement,
Yes,
they have very elaborate testing methods available in their plant. But the most important aspect that is to be seen, there are two more very important things which are required to be seen. Another three, if not two. Number one is moisture content. Okay. And number two is free carbon. Free carbon in the fly ash. Number two. And number three is the fineness of fly ash. So moisture content should not go above 4%.
yes, sir.
Carbon content also should not go above 4%. And the blend value of fly ash which is added to cement should be in the range of 3000 to 3500 blend.
Yes.
These are the three main things which are seen in the cement companies. And I may tell you that because I have visited number of cement companies, number of cement plants. Today in our country, we manufacture excellent quantity of Portland Pozzolana cement with as much as 35% of fly ash added to clinker. That means 35% of grit % of cement. And that gives the 28-day strength as much as a 53 grade Portland cement. So the plants are making really a very good job, I would say. So don't have any doubts about using PPC on the plant. You have to only choose the proper brand when you use it in your area.
Yes, sir. Participants, is there any other questions?
Yeah, Bapat sir, good evening, sir.
Yes.
So I have a
Please.
small doubt, sir. So while making concrete, instead of normal water, we are using for recycled water. What are the factors should be considered? What are the points should be considered?
There is a water standard for concrete. In IS 456, the constituents of water are specified. You follow that. Whether you recycle or whether you use fresh water, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Follow the standard.
Okay, sir. Okay.
You have to see chloride content, you have to see sulfate content, then you have to see the soluble, other soluble materials, organic content. All these things are given in the standard. So the freshwater standard you can follow.
Sir, one basic question. It is asked by our junior, that is a very beginner budding young engineers. That is even the first line of concrete is a homogeneous mixture. So it is mentioned in all the textbooks.
It is actually it is heterogeneous mixture. It is heterogeneous mixture.
Yes, sir. But even the for standard textbook, even the PC work is also he mentioned as a homogeneous mixture. So suddenly, because since it is a third semester student, he asking me, sir, it's a combination of more than two material. Why it is called as homogeneous like that?
Yeah,
then I clarify the doubt. He specifically mentioned as sir, even IIT professor, he wrote like this. So that's what I am asking you.
You might have told something, but actually, concrete is a heterogeneous mixture of aggregate. Both two types of aggregates. You have coarse aggregate, you have fine aggregate, cement, and also the chemical admixtures. The heterogeneity is coming because of the aggregates actually.
Yes,
you have two types of aggregates and you have cement. That is why it becomes heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous. Sir, the last question is actually in if you take it as our country, in southern part, most of the places, the gravel will be easily available. There are different angular surface will be available, shape will be available. They are going to use. But in most of the northern region, that is the gravel will be not available in most of the places. They are used for only whatever the stone that is aggregates available in riverbed. That surface will be very,
riverbed aggregates are prohibited by the government of India.
Oh,
Should not be used. You should use only manufactured sand.
Oh,
or M sand.
M sand. No, I'm asking about coarse aggregate, sir. I'm asking about coarse aggregate.
Both the coarse aggregate as well as the fine aggregate. Only M sand.
But when I saw one lab in IIT Roorkee, they are using for testing purpose. They are used for only the riverbed aggregates.
No, I will tell you what testing.
3 years back.
There is only one place in our country. I have forgotten the name. From where all the testing sand is coming. Only one place in our country. We supply the testing sand for the laboratories for testing of cement, concrete. So forget about that. But you simply cannot use river sand now. It is prohibited all over the country. So it is better to design your concrete mix based on the M sand.
M sand.
And M sand is very good. It is very good. There is no problem. But you have to only do your mix design again. You cannot have the same mix design which you are using for river sand. You have to mix it again. You have to make it again.
Sir, for mixed design, we are using IS code 10262, no? That code will be specifically used for river sand.
The code might have been formulated earlier when there was no ban. But
nowadays we are using M sand, but we are following the same code book.
Yeah, that is okay.
That is okay. The thing is, will be not much deviation in the results and other.
Yeah, correct. It is not much of a deviation. Correct. You may have slightly more water to cement ratio. If my experience shows that with M sand, your water to cement ratio will be slightly higher. But at the same time, it also gives you better strength. Because it has got angular nature particles. Unlike river sand, which has got spherical nature, these particles are angular. So they give you they have a very good binding property with the cement. So there are advantages also, not that it is only disadvantage. There are some advantages also. Only thing is that you have to control the fines. Fines content has to be kept in mind, and that is also specified in the standard. You should not use more than 5% fines.
Okay, Professor. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your valuable presence.
Nice meeting you and hearing from you about your problems.
Thank you, sir.
That's very good. That's very good.
Sir, that was our very own head of the department of civil engineering, sir.
Yeah. Okay. HOD, wonderful, great.
Yes.
So if you come to Pune sometime, you please let me know. You can come to my place.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Definitely.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting us. Okay, Dharani, you can.
Yes, we'll wind up, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute, sir.
In fact, this is the invitation to all your faculty members.
Definitely, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting our department.
Please convey my message to your faculty members.
Friends, yes, sir. Yes.
They are welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sure, sir. Sir, can I? Yes, sir.
Proceed, Dharani. Proceed.
Yes, sir. I would like to take up this opportunity to express my gratitude to Dr. J.D. Bapit, sir, for imparting a bundle of deep knowledge and thought processes in regards with durability and sustainability of concrete. Sir, it was such a wonderful session, and I'm sure that all the participants' perspective towards durable and sustainable concrete would have actually stepped a little further now. Thank you so much, sir. And I render my
request all the participants to, if they still have some questions, to give it to Dharini madam or HOD. Sure. They can you can transfer it to me on email.
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir. Definitely will pass on this, sir.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. And I also render my sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Call it today.
Yes, sir. And I also render my sincere thanks to our management, our esteemed principal, our respected vice principal, and our very own head of the department, Dr. D. Ilango, sir, with whose guidance actually all the faculties and students of our department are being led through the intellectual path. Thank you, sir. And I also
from my side, I would like to thank all the participants for asking questions.
Yes.
And making my time very interesting, because I really enjoy responding to the questions.
Yes,
The
sir.
more
On
the
behalf of
questions,
all
the
the
more I enjoy.
participants, I thank you for sharing so much of knowledge regarding this particular topic. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
And I also thank the event coordinator, Mr. Arun Raj Kristidas, sir, for being a great support in organizing this session. I herein mention also my heartfelt thanks to all the external participants, faculty members, and students who joined and who've actually joined with us today for this technical talk. Thank you all. And the participants have actually shared the feedback link in the chat box. For the external participants who will not be able to access the chat box, the link has been actually projected on the screen. You can give in your feedbacks through the link. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Professor. Thank you once again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, HOD. So I'm hanging up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.